Good evening. At this time, we'll call the City Commissioner meeting to order, July the 28th at 6:30. Roll call.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor James. Here. Commissioner Ambrose.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Oh, I broke my pen. All right, thank you. At this time, we have vacation by one of my colleagues, Reverend Pastor Langford. So good to have you here tonight.
Please join me as you feel comfortable in our time of prayer. Father God, we come to you thankful for this day. We thank you for your love, your peace, your mercy. And today, Father, we especially pray for your grace, that it would help us to see every human being as a child of God, regardless of race, culture, or sexual orientation. We pray for wisdom to receive the stories and experiences of those different from ourselves and respond with respect. For solidarity in our global human family, that we may work together to protect those who are most vulnerable and most in need. For strength to teach our children how to resolve differences nonviolently and respectively, and for the courage to model it in our own behavior. For healing and justice for all those who experience violence and social injustice. For the end of violence perpetrated by harsh words, deadly weapons, or cold indifference. May our homes, our city, our nation, and our world, and especially our places of worship, become havens of peace. For the protection of all of our police and first responders who risk their lives daily to ensure our safety, and for their fair and just policing that will promote peace and well-being in all of our neighborhoods. We pray tonight for our public officials, that they will strive to continue to work for fair education, adequate housing, and equal opportunities for employment for all. God, we thank you for hearing our prayers, and we thank you for the love you place in our hearts that enables us to do the work to bring your peace to all. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Blackfoot. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve of the agenda.
Mayor, could we move one of the consent items onto the regular agenda, the number 2, the fee waiver for the Chamber of Commerce?
I don't have a problem. Madam City Manager?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, and where do we want to put it under new business?
Can we make it number 1?
Sure. I mean,
Number 1 under new business?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that change, I'd make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, at this time, entertain a motion for the approval for consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, special presentation, Good News Arts Summer Camp 2022 presentation.
Thank you so much for giving us some time to present today. My name is Jessica Keldis. I am the founder and director of Good News Arts. And again, just thank you for giving me some time. So I just wanted to, I'm here today to talk about our summer arts camp, which just wrapped up last week. This is Good News Art's second time running the summer arts camp. Last year was our first summer, and this is our second. And I just have to say, it's been an incredible experience here and to be able to do this work with the community. I have, how do I, so, oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Sorry. So I always feel that it's important to acknowledge everybody who makes the work possible. As an organizer, I know that nothing gets done alone, and so there's a lot of folks to thank. I won't list everybody on that slide, but I do have to mention that the majority of our funding comes from the Children's Trust of Alachua County, and they enable most of our students to attend the summer camp for free through the scholarships they provide, which then support the camp operations. I also can't not mention the Parks and Rec Department of City of High Springs. With their partnership, we're able to run the summer arts camp out of the old elementary school and museum building, and their support enables us to run this incredible camp. And then the other listed folks there are other funders, patrons, sponsors, and members of the organization who also contribute financially to enable us to continue to provide this opportunity to our youth for a nominal fee. If you're unfamiliar with the summer arts camp, this summer we did 7 weeks of arts education with Alachua County and surrounding area youth. We were able to hire local artists to teach this art education. We hired 10 local artists as lead artists. We worked with high schoolers in a counselor and artist in training program, and we worked with 130 different youth over the course of the summer. The way the program runs is youth are organized by grades, and they rotate through different artistic mediums. So they do everything from drawing and painting and the traditional studio practices to things like sculpture and ceramics, more abstract projects, and creative thinking. And they get to do all of it all summer long. Everything is provided. They don't have to bring anything other than themselves and an eager attitude. And we also provide breakfast and lunch thanks to the help of the Children's Trust as well. So breakfast and lunch is also provided. And with our partnership with Parks and Rec and other support like parents donating snacks, and we are able to also provide additional snacks throughout the day as well. So we basically try our best to take care of these kids and make it so all they have to do is show up and be a part. Like I said, they get to practice all sorts of different mediums all summer long, and we try to approach the art making in a way that is encouraging these kids to really explore their own creativity. It's less, I don't know if y'all are familiar with paint and sip classes where you're kind of in a group and you're all painting the same thing, and you're kind of instructed what colors to use, and you're given a really set of instructions, almost like paint by number, right? That's not what we're doing with these kids. We're giving them practicing artists, young professional artists who have real practices and show work out in the world. And we're inviting them to engage in materials and learning and creativity in ways that they don't usually get to. They are given, say, coloring materials or clay, and they're asked to, they're definitely given instruction and guidance, but they get to kind of make their own decisions about what they're making. And so it's a freedom and creativity that we don't always find in school settings or in other structured art learning that is incredibly valuable, I think, to our youth and their independence and their growth. We have an incredible staff. This is a picture of most of our staff on the right. And our kids range from kindergarten to, this summer we did kindergarten to 8th grade as campers. And then for the first time ever we tried, well, this is only our second year, so I say for the first time ever, but this year we attempted a counselor and artist in training for our high schoolers. We found last year they weren't as deeply engaged in the day-to-day camp as we would have liked, and we thought if we challenged them by inviting them to be a part of the leadership, that they might enjoy the program more. So we did actually engage around 15 high schoolers over the course of the summer to work with our lead artists in a kind of apprenticeship. So they're paired in different age groups or different mediums, and they work with those lead artists to help instruct and guide, and then they're given some opportunity to make art as well. let's see. We also this summer attempted, or we not didn't attempt. We went on 3 different field trips, which was a big jump from last year when we did 0. So we went and explored Poe Springs, our neighboring Poe Springs, and did nature art with the kids, which was really beautiful and fun. We also went to the Cade Museum in Gainesville, which is a sort of science and STEM education space and museum in the city. And we also did the Harn Museum and the Florida Natural History Museum on the same day. So technically 2 spaces, but on one day. And I have to say again, just another shout out to Parks and Rec Department. I don't know if you all are aware, but there was a shortage of bus drivers this summer. And while the county was meant to aid us in all of those field trips with transportation, they were actually only able to help us with 1. So we relied very heavily on Parks and Rec helping us fill the gap and making sure that we could still take these kids to these amazing spaces. Some of these kids had never been to a museum, so it was super exciting to take them to the Harn especially and see like all this artwork and work with the docents who gave them like individual tours of the space in small groups, and it was just really, really great to see. I don't want to take up too much time, but I do want to acknowledge that Good News Arts is a young organization. We've only been in business for 2 years, and while we run other programming and arts shows out of our gallery space, this has like been the biggest program we've attempted. And last year obviously was our first year. This is our 2nd year. We still have a lot to learn, and we're growing rapidly. Like I said, we had 130 kids registered for this summer. Each week we were serving anywhere from 60 to 80 children, and we don't have enough space, and we need more. And as much as we're working hard to do everything we can and provide everything we can to these kids, we're lacking still in resources. And so, you know, whatever we can do to continue to partner with the city and the Parks and Rec Department, we would love to grow that partnership. We had a waiting list a month before camp started, 30 parents long. And none of those kids were able to attend because the camp was full and technically over capacity from the beginning, and it didn't empty out. So there's a need here that we are really, really attempting to fill. Most of our parents and most of the kids tell us that this is a program that they don't get anywhere else, that is not easy to find. Like I said, these kids all got to attend basically for free. They pay a $20 registration fee, and then everything else is provided, and that's really important to Good News Arts. The foundation of our mission is on accessible arts and accessible arts education. And so this camp has sort of become the epitome of that work, especially for our youth. I don't know that I have much more to say, but we're obviously collecting surveys from our parents to gauge their feedback, and so they can talk with the kids about what worked and what didn't, because like I said, we're growing and we're learning, and we only hope to improve everything we're doing. But one of our parents wrote something that I felt was really positive, and I would like to share with you all, and then I'll kind of wrap it up. But this parent said, and it's anonymous, so I don't know who the parent is, but the parent said, "This camp is just incredible for our family and our children. Summer programs are so expensive. There's no way our kids would have had the chance to do summer camp, much less for 7 weeks, without this opportunity. The emotional, physical, and educational impact on my children has just been exceptional. Every one of my kids has a friend here and is surrounded by other kids they can relate to, in addition to exceptional counselors who really invest and care about the kids." And I have to say, my staff of lead artists is incredible. I work them very hard, and they work very hard for the kids, so I'm very proud of them as well. I think that's everything. Thank you so much for your time, and you all, through your support of the Parks and Rec Department, have supported this program and made it possible, so thank you so much for your support as well.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple things we want to add to it. This is something obviously you would know, Mr. Mayor, from roughly about a decade ago. This is the commission at the time really wanted to do some kind of summer camp program / after school program. So we finally got there, which is great. And Jessica did a wonderful job of getting this together. Just public-private partnership is something which is within the strategic initiative that we've done from about a year or so ago that we try to pound onto, and we've been having the ability to go ahead and maintain that, which I think is really, really good for us. The counselors were fantastic. I mean, they were so well committed and very experienced with our youth. I can't thank them enough for that. And just also as well as that the merchants, the local community seemed to kind of come together, from the Winn-Dixies to the Kiwanis and et cetera. They all came together, they donated money and donated food, et cetera, for the last couple weeks. So it just shows how the community came together with this program. So we're very, very grateful. And of course, Aria, she's under here. She's like the by far the best camper that we've had. She certainly made a huge impact with not just myself, but with the staff. And we're very, 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 very lucky to have her family, and the other counselors that are here right now. Again, very committed. We're very grateful and very thankful. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Damon,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to have to go back in history to be able to ask my question. I did some research and found that in May of last year, you presented in citizens' requests that we were going to have a summer camp for 6 weeks. There was no discussion. On September 9th, a little over 3 months later, during citizens' requests and comments, Elder Adam Joy came before the commission with you to advise the commission of talks he'd been having with our city manager and assistant city manager regarding the old schoolhouse to be used for his Head Start program. According to the video, he was advised that the old schoolhouse was not available due to the poor condition of the building. This is the old schoolhouse over in Douglas neighborhood. He stated that childcare in particular was a problem in High Springs and would like to partner with the city to find a viable solution. He also mentioned the grant he had received for Head Start, and he thanked staff for meeting with him. The following commission meeting, September 20th, the Head Start program was discussed by Elder Adam Joy, who gave an excellent presentation, and there was discussion for 30 minutes regarding moving forward. The commission decided it was not viable for a number of reasons, including having children based basically in an area of city business, and that the facility would not be available to the city during the normal school year. I believe we all felt badly that we did not have a facility for his use. The Head Start program is so important and no longer funded in our public schools. My question is why the summer school program was not brought before the commission and the Head Start program was. I'm also curious about the after-school program as well. And believe me, I think you had a wonderful presentation. I know you're disappointed in my comments, but I hear from a different perspective. So that's why I'm bringing these up.
So Mr. Mayor, in other words, you were asking why we haven't presented it to the commission, the after-school program, or?
Both the summer school and the after-school program. I mean, we're not able to use the school over here, the museum, 6 weeks out of the summer.
Well, okay.
7 weeks evidently, and I guess we can't. I'm not familiar with the after-school program.
Well, with Head Start, typically when you do a Head Start program, they're requesting anywhere from 5 to 15-year contract. Therefore, if they utilize the building, they are the ones who have the monopoly of the building. Therefore, we can't use it for rentals or anything of that nature. Adam Joy the first Head Start program, they approached to us. They wanted to utilize the actual daycare. Daycare was in no condition, and we had several forums as well to where that the community wanted to go ahead and put I believe it was a community center. They wanted to go ahead and do that. So we nixed that, and then they were looking at the 2 side buildings that are in disarray at the moment. They were willing at the time to put in an abundance amount of money. You're looking at anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 for them to go ahead and take that one section of the old school and revamp it. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. To my understanding, Head Start didn't have the funding to go ahead and revamp that building. Next was Adam Joy. Adam Joy wanted to come in, and he wanted to go ahead and utilize the two rooms that Jessica has used and that we have for our robotics program, and also for what we've done before with our current summer program and after-school program. So if Head Start were to take that over, we would not be able to utilize it for any rentals for whatsoever, and other programs perhaps in the future, roughly anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 years. I hope that answers your question.
No, because
Okay.
you can't use it during the summer anyway. Their school encompasses all day long. You can't go in after their school is over and have a meeting at night. The museum is there, and I was at a pop-up that they had during the summer, and it's very difficult for someone going in there. It takes some cleaning up to do. These are comments that I'm receiving.
I'm curious to know the issues of people coming up and wanting to, for whatever reason, and just to be very clear, for several years since I've been here, those rooms have not been used hardly at all. And those goes for the 2 rooms. They were sitting there. And I was told as well as not only from DeCourcy, who was the city manager, Mr. Ed Booth as well, that we need to put some was a public purpose in those rooms rather than just a meeting here and a meeting there. I understand with the museum, they would like to do some pop-up. Up until just recently, since I've been here, there has not been any pop-up with the exception of one time. And that just happened, I say, about a couple months ago. I don't know verbatim, but there were no pop-up museums before. And probably there were before I was here. And it's only 2.5 months out of the whole entire year that the camp is able to utilize those facilities. So it's roughly 2.5 months, and it's for the youth in our community.
I
and
understand
it was,
that.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing against the youth. in
No,
this
I understand.
community.
And I understand that too.
I think they do a wonderful job as far as art is concerned. I'm just concerned with the people who have come to me stating that it is, for the museum, they really can't have anything right now. And I'll let them speak to that if they so choose. But
The museum was mentioned, that's why. That's why it was just, yeah, okay.
oh, no, that's fine. I agree with that, but I'll let them do their own talking
Sure.
on that. But again, so the reason why the school was not brought before us, the summer camp or the after-school, the difference in the fact that Head Start wanted a 5 to 10 year obligation.
Correct.
And of course, the summer camp doesn't have an obligation, but it seems we're going into the 3rd year now, so.
For 2 months out of the year. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yes, for 2 months out of the year.
Thank you, Damon.
And can I add
I'm sorry,
something, Mayor?
Yes.
Can I add something? I think as we grow the facilities, more and more people are wanting the facilities, and we can certainly come up with something that maybe a resolution, an ordinance, or something that we all talk about, so we have some parameters of what's coming forward and what's not to the commission in the
Sure.
in the future. Not.
May I also add something? As far as I know, people were actually utilizing the space on the weekends. We were required to clear out the large room and make it available for a church group that was using the room on Sundays. And we would always be happy to accommodate any other folks that are using the space for rentals outside of the camp hours. That's never been an issue for us.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question? We had a presentation on the summer arts camp, and you're mentioning after school. I don't know what that is. I'm not aware of what you're talking about.
Yes, go right ahead.
Sure.
Yes.
So last spring, in the spring, because we had worked with the Parks and Rec Department with the summer arts camp, and we do have an after-school arts program, which is very minimal compared to the summer arts camp. It's about a few hours each week. Similarly structured, though, where the kids rotate in different mediums each week, and it's designated by age range and things like that. Our new gallery space on Main Street is a little bit smaller, and it's harder to utilize that space for the classroom for the kids. And so we went to Damon and asked if we could sort of extend some of this work that we're doing with the youth in partnership with Parks and Rec and serving our county youth and especially our High Springs youth, and have the after-school arts program in that space. Again, it's roughly 3 to 6 hours, depending on setup and breakdown each week, that we use the smaller room in the old elementary school. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same setup. We do all of the registration, we provide all the materials, the lead artists, and work with the kids in that. Oh, sorry, I don't think my mic was on.
So that's something new that's coming that hasn't been done before, is that correct?
No, we did it in the spring.
Okay.
And we hope to continue to offer it in the fall. Again, the Parks and Rec Department and the old elementary school are a really ideal space for youth in that it's centralized for a lot of our community members, and they kind of all know it as a good landmark, and we know it as a good safe space for the kids in that there's like,
Well, I'm thinking that if it's growing, obviously, if you had a waiting list, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I have somebody to introduce you to.
Okay. I love to meet new
Because I
people.
wonder why, since this is kid-centric, obviously, there's an after-school program right here at High Springs Community School. They have a lot of room in the cafeteria. They have a summer camp. And the lady who runs their summer camp and their EDEP program is also a bus driver. So she drives all the kids on weekly field trips. And I wonder if that might be a real natural partnership since it's all about the kids.
Sure.
You know, because she's very, very
We're open
creative.
to growing partnerships for sure. Part of the reasons we wanted to partner with Parks and Rec is because that we understand that their mission is not just recreation and sports, but also culture. And a big part of Good News Arts' mission is to grow and support the arts and culture in our community.
That was new for me.
So-
I always thought Parks and Rec was Parks and Rec, sorry. I just think I could introduce you to somebody over at the school who would love to work with you, I'm sure.
Absolutely happy to
She's
grow.
wonderful.
Yes, yes.
I think when the building, I think that was one of the things that was supposed to be in the building was culture when it came.
Parks,
I wasn't here
recreation,
during
yeah.
that time, but I
Yeah,
thought that was
recreation,
supposed to be a
education,
use of
culture.
the building. I thought there was something in writing in one of the contracts.
Yes. Anything else?
I see you have some of your staff with you. Introduce your staff there. If you have some of your counselor staff, please stand. I remember the faces from last year. Stand up and let us see you. And the guy with the beard there, I remember your face.
So we have, like I said, we have 10 lead artists that we hired, but we also hire, in addition to myself, 2 additional directors, with the idea that 3 directors can support each other more thoroughly. We all have different specialties. I'm the artistic director.
I'm the education director.
And this is our site director. And then this is one of our lead artists as well.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all for your work. Thank you so much. Youth is our future.
Any other questions?
Just thank you.
Thank
for
you. Thank you.
Giving our kids something to do. Absolutely. Yes, indeed.
All righty. Another special presentation. When I looked at it, I want to say ARP, but that's not what it says.
No.
Yo, ARPA update. Yes, sir.
Good evening. So we talked last meeting, and city manager comments about providing an update on the ARPA projects, where we're at, what we're looking at anticipated funding. So round 1 of funding, we received $1,547,137. Next round of funding will be the same. We should receive that in September of 2022. So just to give you an idea of where we're at. So currently our completed projects are, we've completed the cardiac monitor, City Hall's roof, premium pay, and the opiate task force. Those 4 projects have been completed at this point in time, out of the extensive list we had to begin with. The next lines of projects you'll see, the body cameras for PD, fire department roof, the paging system for the fire department, City Hall elevator, and spare pumps are all in progress. We're either at some phase in there, either waiting for stuff to come in, waiting on technology reviews, like for the body cameras. We just finished up all the cloud storage space with that. Cameras are on order, so just waiting on projects. Fire department roof, material's been ordered. It was ordered at the same time as City Hall. We're just waiting for it to come in. Paging system, we just got the scope of work, finished everything up on that, so now it's just a matter of coordinating with dispatch and coordinating with the vendor to get the product on site. City Hall elevator, we just did a whole bunch of stuff, contract on it. Parts are starting to filter in now, so we're just waiting on them. Probably with the budget and everything else, I'm probably going to wait until October to kick that off, so we're not right in the middle of budget meetings trying to move to another facility and everything else. But we're still working with the vendor, so we don't have a date on that one yet. 100% other than parts are coming in, and then the spare pumps for the lift station should be here shortly. So that's where everything at this point on the items that were approved to start looking into or to start buying are. There are 2 items on the in the yellow that you'll see. The first 2 items on those are the generators for the lift stations and software for UB billing. When we went out and started looking at quotes on the generators for the lift stations, we found we only had enough funding for 3. My recommendation, and if the commission would allow us to, is look at taking the funding from the software right now, since that money is available, and go out to bid and see what the bids come in at to try to do all 7 lift stations, so we're not piecemealing this. I'm not saying purchase, go out to bid, let's see what we got, bring it back to the commission sometime the end of August, beginning of September, to see where we're at, if we need to just stay with 3, or we can go to 7, or come and meet in the middle somewhere. But that's gonna have to be a bidded project. And then we can move the UB software, human resources software, city manager and I've talked, the finance director and I have talked. That's going to be a later down the year project anyhow, so it wouldn't be an issue moving it to the next round of funding. Then everything else in the yellow you see on your list is stuff that we went through and ranked during our ARPA workshops and things along those lines that we need to talk about future consideration for the next round of funding. There was a couple things on there that have come up since we had that discussion that are added on there that were staff recommendations. One, we have a main lift repair and valve issue we need to discuss relatively soon to work on that. And there's our public works directors here if you have any questions additional on that when we get there. There was a need identified on some patrol rifles with PD. I can explain that a little bit. Chief Shepard's here as well. He can explain it farther. We went back and looked at the need identified on that, and some of those weapons are from the Vietnam era and are through a program on a donation through the federal government. There's some liability there, so it's something that needs to be discussed. The fire department bay vent system, we actually found a grant to go out for. So we're waiting to find out what the awardance is on that's going to be, whether we use ARPA funding for the match or we find it in the general fund budget. That's going to be up for discussion at some point once we know what happens there. And then a couple of commissioners had some things they wanted added. One was the bay floor replacement. I believe it was Commissioner Ambrose asked about that. So it's in there. It was a ranked project, but we've got some ideas of what that's going to cost now that are better. And then there was a commissioner request to make AMI part of the ARPA funding discussion. And then on your second page, it goes into the rest of the remaining projects and different things on there, which just, some of them have estimated costs, some of them don't, because we haven't made it that far at this point. But this is just a good representation of where we're currently at and a broad overview of where we need to be. So, we have any questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
The main lift station repair.
Yes.
It's my understanding that is the main lift station that feeds to our sewer plant.
Correct.
And is it accurate that the pipe that is causing this urgent need was cast iron and is rusting out?
That is my understanding, that in the valve itself.
And the valve doesn't function?
So I can have our public works director come up and discuss that.
Well, yeah, I guess my question, Thomas, if you wouldn't mind, is how long can we put this off, or shouldn't we be mobilizing? Because if this fails, isn't it going to be more costly and disruptive to the community than if we immediately start dealing with this? And it's caused by a lack of maintenance, is what I understand? Okay. Okay.
And it is failed. All the bolts are all rotted. We cannot even turn the valves. If we try to, it's going to fall apart. I can bring you pictures to the next meeting. It's got me scared to death.
Okay, so, and we can't use impact P funds because it's maintenance of an existing structure, correct?
Correct.
So why shouldn't we be making a motion to be authorizing you to move forward and get bids to get this done? So, I mean, what, I guess tell me this, what are we waiting for since we've identified an urgent failing need on a major piece of infrastructure?
At the moment, I am getting prices at the moment. And right now, the price that you see on there is one price from a place out of Jacksonville that did install that. And I'm not going back cast iron, I'm going stainless.
Good.
Then we never have this problem again, ever.
This will be probably on the next agenda as a discussion, but we wanted to bring it to your attention as it is definitely a need, because we got to finish getting the idea of what this is going to cost, so we can come back with an educated.
But then you'd have to then turn around and go out for bids, right? Okay, so would we, if we authorize you to go out for bids now, is that?
Well, this is technically an emergency repair, so by
Okay.
the purchasing policy, we could just come in with 3 quotes, come in with the cheapest and go in, or whichever we decide is the most appropriate quote, not so much the cheapest, and move forward that way. Or we could ask tonight and you say go out to bids and we can wait 30 days. So that's, was gonna be part of the discussion tonight, once we got.
No, I would just like to be in a position to tell you to move forward and get it done before.
I mean, if I have a
Because
consensus.
Yeah.
if it fails, I mean, we're gonna have DEP all over us and besides, you know, what else everywhere else. So it's very, very bad, and I don't know why the lack of maintenance is, but it's bad. You could touch a bolt with your hand, and it'll just crumble in your hand.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
The urgency of this, to me, eclipses available ARPA funding. And, I mean, this to me is this is a stat. I'm with Commissioner Ambrose that we need to,
Yeah, we don't disagree with you at all. That was just
Okay.
gonna be part of the discussion tonight. I just wanted to kind of run through this, and as we went through, have the discussion if anything came glaring.
yeah, I would take it off ARPA and,
If I can get a consensus from the commission to go out to get this rolling, we'll get it rolling. And I can bring back the price by the next meeting at the latest.
Yes.
It
Unless
sounds
you're
like the
comfortable
urgency.
saying, hey, you guys are in the 150 mark, go ahead and try to stay within that and make it happen, and we can just report back, since it is a stat item.
It sounds like the urgency is there, and it's something that we really need to move forward on.
Okay, we do.
And
And
you
I
answer, you answer my question, staying still, that's the way to go. Because you're dealing with,
Still.
Sure, make it happen.
Thank you.
But we're having these discussions, so please, anything, that's, all staff's here should be able to answer just about anything tonight. They're all aware of it, so. Any other questions?
any other questions? Anyone from the audience? All righty, thank you, sir.
Like you good. I'm gonna hold on to this one.
All right. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. Discuss and consider the act as a second reading on ordinance 2022-16. Yes, sir.
Motion will be to pass ordinance number 2022-16. You have the ability to move this to a date certain. Or if the board wishes to deny it, they can file a motion to deny it. This is a quasi-judicial matter, so in a moment, we can have everyone stand up and be sworn. If you'd like me to swear them in, I'm happy to do so. Of course, if we desire to deny such an ordinance, there would have to be competent and substantial evidence in the record in order to establish the reason for the denial. The fairly standard practice when we change the county designation of zoning to city designated zoning on properties that we have previously annexed. The reason for this is that we are now taking zoning authority over the land. And to do otherwise, we would have to apply the zoning code from the county, and that is challenging because we're applying county rules to city properties. Taking some to annexation. And with that, I'm happy to swear folks in.
All right. Yes, please. Thank you.
Mayor, I spoke with the city manager and the city attorney's office. When this first came up, I recused myself. The circumstances are different and the same conflict doesn't exist, but they thought since I'd recused myself at the first vote, I should recuse myself for the second. So I'll participate in the discussion, but I won't be voting on this issue for that reason.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone that's going to speak on this matter, will you please stand at this time, be sworn in? Okay,
If will raise your right hand, anybody that is standing, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I do. Heard the I do's, and I think I recognize Dean back.
And Ashley. And Ashley, and just in case.
Very good.
Good move.
And if it went, we'll get name, record.
you keep breaking up on us, Scott. I see you keep breaking up on us for some reason.
Give us your full name when you come to the podium, please.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. All right. Commissioners, any discussions? Any questions? So let's begin.
Nothing has changed in this, I think, since we talked about it last.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, Madam City Manager, and Mr. City Attorney remotely. I won't try to do that skipping sound like Scott just did on 45 from 1960. I'm Jerry Diedenbach, CHW Executive Vice President. We are here, as we were last time. You have placed the City of High Springs agricultural land use upon the property, and last time you also unanimously approved placing High Springs zoning on the property. We've been following the process through your staff and through the Regional Planning Council. We know that your evaluation and appraisal report is being currently reviewed with DEO, and we would enjoy your continued support of this request to place City of High Springs zoning upon the property this evening. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. With me tonight is Vanessa Goff from Duke Energy again, but we wanted to try to keep this as your shortest presentation of the evening in respect of y'all's time. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, I wanted to add one more piece of information.
Yes, ma'am.
The land use is not before you tonight because since we did the comprehensive plan amendment, it was already on there. So we don't have to do that anymore, just the zoning.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Very good.
All right, thank you. All right, commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Everybody clear? All right. With that being the case, I will make a motion that ordinance 2022-16 be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience, questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk? Yes.
Vice Mayor James?
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrose? This is not voting. Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. All righty. Moving on to item number G, citizens' requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. If someone like to speak on anything other than something on the agenda? Have one rising. Hey.
Drew Travis, 15337 Northwest 214 Terrace, High Springs. I have a question about the new development coming in off of 222, and how is the city going to handle the road?
We are getting ready, we're going through the process to adopt roadway impact fees, and they are one-time fees on new development. Before the development comes, those fees will be adopted, and each home as it goes in will have to pay those fees. So that will go towards some of the developers responsible for all the internal improvements, and that will go to some of the off-site improvements that are required. But in addition, any money that it doesn't help on the off-site improvements, the developer will be required to do improvements so that traffic continues to flow and it's safe. At plating, we do a traffic impact analysis, and the engineers do other studies to determine what is needed so that we have adequate access and so that we have adequate mobility.
Are they going to look at the entire road, the 3 miles, or just the 222?
They do not look at the entire 3 miles. They look at, when they do a traffic impact analysis, they do determine the number of vehicles and the number of vehicles over, a large amount of time. But there will be numerous access points, not just one, as the development builds out. So the plan is that they're not all coming out on the same access point at the same time of day. Also, the development will be a development that takes a number of years. So as it grows and they add more houses, then the larger network is looked at certain trigger points.
Approximately how many homes are they
So
looking to build?
right now they're proposing 1,432 homes, and they could overlay some multifamily. The proposal right now is up to 250 multifamily and 250, I think, senior living. But then that would take away some of the single-family homes. It just would be replaced by a different.
So you're looking at approximately 1,200 residences of some kind.
If it's the whole development is planned as single-family, it'll be 1,432. If it's planned as less, I don't know what the number will be because it depends on where they put the multifamily as to what number of homes is taken away for the multifamily if they go that route.
My experience with city and county and roads has always been the city and county reacts to development, not proacts. The engineers need to consider fully build out so that we're not trying to get out of my residence with my horse trailer at a 4-lane traffic. That traffic goes the easiest way. If it's real congested off of 222 and 441, then they'll go south and around to 138. The road is in terrible repair now. We have potholes the size of garbage cans. It couldn't take much more traffic. But we'd also hate to lose all the trees to make it a 4-lane road. So I don't know how you're going to handle this.
Well,
That's my question.
Right, when we do the planning at the plating stage, then we also look at the potential stacking at the different times of days, and the roads are required to meet certain levels of service. And
When will this planning be?
that is if the zoning is approved, but we do some preliminary looks, consideration at zoning, but the final is at plating if it's approved, because the engineering studies are very expensive and take a very long time, and so typically, and you have to consider it with the plat, because the plat can change, and so that determines where the final access points and everything will be, so it doesn't make sense to do it completely at zoning at this point.
Is the Florida Department of Transportation involved in this?
They will be at time of plating
Okay, when will the plating be?
after the zoning. So it goes zoning and then preliminary plat and then
So
final
zoning
plat.
is tonight, if I'm,
No, nothing is on the table tonight for Bridalwood.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Speaking of roadway, they're beginning to build all of these houses off of Railroad Avenue, and there are already a lot of traffic down Railroad Avenue. And I'm a little concerned because my sister, who is 87 years old, likes to walk down that roadway. And I'm a little concerned about her already. And when these people begin to start moving into these houses, there's going to be more traffic on Railroad Avenue. And it already is a lot of impact on that roadway already. So what are you all planning on doing about improving that roadway? It's about 15 houses in that area. So we would like for something to be done because people are using that roadway as a cutoff rather than going down 441. And we've tried to get the police to sit there and see how fast they ride down there. Just late in the afternoon, to cut off from 5 o'clock traffic. So we would like for something to be done about Railroad Avenue roadway too, since you all are talking about improving roadway.
We can take a look at it. The grid for downtown is already there, so as far as expansion or anything, that's probably not going to happen. As well as it's already been platted down there, so we don't have a lot of control. We can't take away the homes from being built right now.
So the builders can't add into their funding to improve our roadways since they're building all of these houses?
They will pay in, once the roadway impact fees are approved in a few months, they will pay into that. It will not, based on the number of homes going down there, it will not produce enough money to do any major projects. So we have to look at the existing roads in accordance with the other roads in the city and then prioritize them. And we're in the process. We've hired a new public works director. And so he's working on categorizing the roads over the number of people who use them, the condition they're in, a number of things. And we already have a list, but we're refining the list and to see where the priorities are. And we're looking at funding, but currently we do not have a lot of money to do what we would like to as far as roads, so we've been applying for a number of grants.
Okay. You know my problem, Bruce. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing no one rising, we'll move on to new business. Okay, first item on the agenda for new business is the facility fee waiver. Yes, sir.
All right. So it's my understanding our city policy currently allows a nonprofit to have a 50% reduction in the facility use fees. And I don't believe the policy distinguishes between a nonprofit or a charitable nonprofit. So it's available to any of those categories. So, charitable would fall into the category of churches or youth groups like Santa Fe baseball, the Girl Scouts, Kiwanis Club, many others are charitable. There's a tax deduction that goes with contributing. Nonprofits, but not charitable, the IRS says, are groups that serve a specific group or cause for the benefit of that group or cause. So home associations, homeowners associations are nonprofits, trade associations, hospitals, Blue Cross is a nonprofit, political organizations, labor unions, legal aid societies all fall into a nonprofit but not charitable. So there are different categories. So a 501c6 is the category that business leagues, Chamber of Commerce's, real estate boards, and the Professional Football League fall into, believe it or not. I didn't know that until recently. But what the Chamber is asking is that we make a special exception and grant them 100% reduction in fees that are token to help offset the expense and upkeep of city facilities. And And, you know, really the mission of the chamber, you know, is for the success of the community and the businesses, as well as to promote tourism. That's from the mission statement off of our chamber's webpage. So it's for their group, the business community. And, you know, why things like a backpack giveaway or something like that, I could see if they were engaging in that, the city contribute and partner with them and maybe waive fees. But for their monthly meetings, which are specifically for the benefit of the business community, it seems to me that an exception to pay nothing is inappropriate. And part of the reason I feel that is for Pioneer Days, a citizen had asked about if nonprofit groups would be participating. And the Chamber of Commerce's response is, yes, of course. We also have nonprofit. All they have to do is sign up and pay the fee, and they're ready to go. We already have quite a few. At Pioneer Days this year, the Girl Scouts were one of the nonprofits that participated, trying to encourage youth to participate. They were also selling cookies, because I think most of us expect the opportunity to buy cookies if you see Girl Scouts sitting there. But they were charged the full fee to participate, according to what the leader told me. So the chamber, at least that's the information that they provided. But also recently, you know, the chamber posted a comment about the condition of the sign on the chamber building, that they have a lease, which includes that they're responsible for maintenance of things of under $500. I don't know what maintenance has been done other than, you know, painting of their office area and things, but I could make an argument that if the sign is deteriorating and part of their lease says that they're supposed to help upkeep that building, that they be doing that instead of posting on social media about the condition of the sign and how bad it is. So really, I just don't feel that we should extend the special privilege to this one nonprofit group for 100% exemption for the use for their monthly meetings and mixers. I'm personally a member of 3 other chambers. All of them pay for the use of their fees or meeting space where they meet. That's the Alachua Chamber, the Gainesville Chamber, and the Suwannee County Chamber, where I personally participate in those groups. And they all pay their fees. And so I just don't think it's appropriate that we grant the chamber that exception. That's me. That's why I wanted to put it on the agenda. And I wouldn't be supporting a blanket waiver to use city facilities.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I recently had an opportunity to go around to the downtown businesses with Sharon, the president of the chamber. And I think it's probably not as commonly known how much she does for the businesses. And I think as much as she's doing for all of the individual businesses, that really does benefit the community tremendously. I mean, if there's some business owners that need to take a lunch break, she'll watch their store for them while they're gone. And I think that's you know, it's not Gainesville, it's not Suwannee County, but it is High Springs. And I think that, at least with my interactions with the chamber, they're very, very dedicated to doing everything they can for the sake of the whole community. And I feel like we're kind of picking on them in this instance, and I'm not quite sure why. I mean, I understand that the specific comments that you made, I'm not familiar with them, but I also know they do take care of a lot of their own maintenance in that building. So I think with as much as they do for our community, that this is kind of stepping over pennies, and it's really not appropriate. I think continuing on the way we've always done is absolutely in the whole community's best interest.
Yes.
Ross, did I understand you to say that there's a difference between charitable nonprofit and community nonprofit?
There's a difference. Yeah, the IRS classifies there are many nonprofits.
Yeah.
A charitable nonprofit is different.
And so they would not be charged, the charitable nonprofits would not have to be
No,
paid.
we charge 50% to any nonprofit right
Okay,
now.
so
The
there's-
chamber's asking for an exception to that policy.
Okay. In return, I would like to see a list of all who rent the facilities and do not have to pay. I understand there are those who do not have to pay regularly because, and I understand too that if what they're doing is part of the rec department, they don't have to pay either. So I think we need to know who is having to pay and who is not having to pay, because I do know that there are those who do not pay. So I would request that if we're going to deny the chamber the continued use, years ago, it was said in some document or other that there would be no charge, okay? So if they have to pay, and there are if there's anyone who rents a facility or who uses a facility and does not pay, I would like a list of those. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'm sorry for forgetting this earlier, but, you know, one of the comments the chamber had made previously was that they're hard times. In a June 17th email from the chamber to whoever's on their emailing list, they talk about that the membership was down to 30 members 2 years ago and is now exceeding 100 members. So if there's been this growth in membership, I'm just not sure why the business community, which really should, probably incorporate more than, retail merchants in the downtown area. There are a lot of other businesses in the city that need to benefit from those activities too. But if their membership is growing, and I went on the website yesterday, and there's no list of anyone who's a member of the Chamber of Commerce available on the website. So I'm not sure who a member is.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
are you interested in a list of members?
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Every other chamber, they have a list of members when you go to their site on who's a member, and it makes it's part of how people outside of the community find businesses in a community. So it's a kind of a standard, but if the member number has grown up to 100 and they're paying membership fees, then, a $50 fee to use the Civic Center for a meeting shouldn't be that, burdensome.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Would it be appropriate to move this forward to maybe another meeting pending getting the data that Commissioner Jones was asking for, perhaps, how many people are looking to rent, how many people are paying, how many people are not?
Mr. Mayor, can I add? I think that the date they're requesting for a waiver for it might be before the next meeting. Yeah. So the date they want a waiver is before the next regular commission meeting, just for information.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say something about the membership for the chamber. I don't know who is responsible for it at this point, but I do know in the past, there was a running record of who the members were, as well as the fee that was paid to join the chamber. Are you just saying they discontinued and they don't have such a thing anymore? Anybody know?
That's ridiculous.
Can I make a suggestion real quick?
Sure, yes, please.
Could we waive their fee for the next meeting at the beginning of August, bring this back on the 11th, and let's have an agenda item dedicated to have this discussion, and everybody will have time to get their stuff together? Would that be something the commission would be in favor of?
Sure.
Sure. I think we're making a big deal out of nothing, but
Yeah, that'll work.
but my only thing is, if we do it for one organization, we're gonna have to do it for all an organization. If my organization wanted to come, I'm a nonprofit, not a charitable profit, but we meet at once a month. So if I want to come meet once a month, are y'all gonna waive it for me in my group? Or the next group want to say, I want to use the Civic Center to hold my nonprofit meetings. Are we gonna wait for that group? That's my biggest concern. Are we gonna be fair to everyone? If we do it for one, we'll have to do it for all. So now, are we getting ready to open up a can of worms? And every nonprofit gonna wanna have their meetings at the Civic Center for free. I don't wanna make a whole lot of money at the Civic Center. That's not a profit-making thing. But the question is, will every nonprofit organization wanna have a meeting and have the fees waived? Are we gonna do it for all?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That's why I've asked for a listing of those who currently pay and those who do not currently pay.
And that's what's confusing. I'm kind of confused. So it's organizations that on a continuous basis have the Civic Center for free? Not that I know of. I know people, I know at times people come and ask for a waiver. I can remember when that senior group used to come. They used to do a waiver for them for once a year to have their dinner. Thanksgiving dinner. Once upon a time when Mr. Barber was having his organization meet, we waived it for him. So I'm kind of confused tonight. Who's all these groups that's getting it for free or not getting it for free? I think it's on who's come as acts.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I believe this issue came up one time before, and they were having a hard time because so many people kept coming up and asking. So that's when they passed the resolution setting the fees where they could give the reduction to nonprofits. And I don't believe, I'd have to look at the resolution to see, but I don't believe there was a waiver of fees in the resolution.
Yeah. And so that's my understanding too. Nonprofits price was reduced half price or whatever the percentage was.
Mr. Mayor, may I, tangential to this, is what you had said, Commissioner Jones, I'm not sure if I understood you correctly. Is there some specific agreement already in place with the chamber, independent of it being nonprofit, government, or whatever? Was there not mentioned that there was some kind of agreement already in place?
There is an agreement with the chamber. It does not address the rental of, it's mainly on their existing building and doesn't address like free rentals of rooms. It is definitely time to go back and look over that agreement plus the agreement, not just of the chambers, but several of the organizations that use city facilities on a regular basis. And it's just good housekeeping.
Ross, I have a question for you. When you said that about tell me, let me see, you told me so many things. About, well, we did have, when we took over, we had a list of 30 people on there. 30 people did not pay dues. We shut our chamber's website down to redo it. And Kim is working on it now, and those members were up there until a few days ago. She took them down because she's reworking our website. That's why that's not on there.
Sharon, I appreciate you saying that. You and I had a phone conversation when you called me about renewing my business membership, and I indicated to you one of the reasons we didn't renew was that there hasn't been a list on the chamber page since the page was revamped. And I don't want to go into the weeds here because we really need to table this and come back.
Hold on.
I don't appreciate
Mr. Ross, hold on, please. We're here to discuss this waiver. We're not here to discuss the chamber's membership. We're not here for that. We're here for this waiver. This is what before the commissions at this time is this waiver, not about membership and all of that. So what we need to do about this? That's the question. Are we going to approve it? Are we going to
Could I make a motion that we approve it for the next meeting and then bring it back to the commission for more discussion for a quarterly or whatever basis further so that we can get them past their next meeting and then we can look at the data Commissioner Jones is asking for?
Yeah.
That's what you were saying, Bruce, right?
Was just so we can get some of the questions answered, but at least they can still do their thing in August.
Yes. And let's also bring up the orders of the fees. Because I remember doing the fee, and that was one of the problems.
You remember doing what?
Setting the fees for the Civic
Oh,
Center.
okay.
Again, I don't have a problem with it. If you're going to do it for one, you must do it for other. I'm about being fair. I'm about being fair. Let's just be fair to everyone. If any organization want to do it, are we going to wait for them also? That's my question. All right, so what's your pleasure? Yeah, one.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the fee for their next regular meeting and then bring it back after they've had their meeting for the next regular commission meeting to discuss with data that has been requested.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience? Any questions? All right, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. All righty. Okay, discussion and consider and provide direction on ordinance 2022-13. Scott.
Mr. Mayor, we intend to do additional drafting on this. Mr. Mayor, can you hear me better? I moved the mic a little closer.
Yes, sir. We'll hear you better now.
Good, good. We need to do some more work to the mural ordinance. There's been some comments as to the existing draft. I anticipate we'll have it ready by the next meeting, so I would request a motion to continue this to the next meeting.
All right, thank you. I heard the request. Commissioners? Yes.
I don't mind it being moved to the next meeting. I would just like it to be as soon as possible because this needs to be in place. We don't have any protection in place and we need it. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, entertain a motion.
I move that we table it until the next meeting. I don't know what that is, but the next meeting.
I second.
August the 11th. Okay. Did I get a motion in a second?
I second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number 3, discuss and consider act of resolution 2022-I.
Mr. Mayor, I'll read this by title only. This is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, Florida, with respect to reimbursement of certain costs and expenditures relating to public improvements in and for the City of High Springs, Florida. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2022-I as read by title only.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm Diane
Yes.
Wilson. I'm the Finance Director, and I'll give you a little background on this item. Similar to what we did with the Canoe Outpost purchase, we began making expenditures prior to the financing due to timing with vendors in the market and the like. So for the AMI project, we're seeking to do the same thing. We currently have an RFP out on the street for banking services for a loan, and we want to start working right away with the vendor. The vendor's ready to go. We have several failing meters, and we want to get it in the ground as soon as possible. So to pre-spend the money in government, you need to have a reimbursement resolution approved by the commission. So that's all this is for tonight. That just lets us get the borrowing, and if we need to reimburse the general fund, we can do so.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir, please. Are we looking to borrow the full amount?
No, ma'am. We just need to be able to get started on the project. So whatever the upfront, costs we need to get them started on the first section, we would do that. We don't know yet what that amount will be. We're still in a planning stage right now, but it's going to take a few weeks before we actually have the financing in place. So we want to try to move as quickly as possible and not be delayed by the financing portion.
Mr. Mayor, may I add something?
Yes.
And the financing obviously comes to y'all to approve before it's done that way. And so I know that it's important to you also to look at AMI financing with the ARPA funds. So if y'all choose to do it with the ARPA funds, and the ARPA funds could reimburse. I mean, you can reimburse it however you like, but we just want to get started and use money already in the budget. And then we'll reimburse when we decide how the financing is going to come through. There's just many, many meters that need to be replaced, and the sooner we can get it going, the better.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, please. So we're authorizing spending funds, but we don't know how much we need to spend? Do I understand that correctly?
Mr. Mayor, we know how much the project in total will cost. It really depends on how long it takes for the financing to be in place. So it really just depends how far we can get with the project. The total project cost isn't going to change. The borrowing is going to be for the total project cost, and that's no different. So if, for example, if the first month we need to, the vendor requires us to pay $100,000, let's say, to get moving on the project, we can do that, and then legally, we're allowed to use the borrowing to reimburse the general fund that $100,000. This is really just a precaution so that we meet all our financing legalities. This isn't changing the project, it's not changing the amount that's being spent. It's just different from, well, it'd be like if you were doing a home project and you use your savings because you weren't able to close on your home equity loan in time, and then you're going to use some home equity funding to put it back. It's just, in government, you're required to have this document in place that the commission is fully aware that we may pre-spend before the borrowing comes in, but you're proving that that money will be used to reimburse so that the general fund doesn't end up in a hole.
If I may again, please. We're getting ready to do budgeting here soon. Is AMI funding not part of the budget discussion that we're going to be having in the next few weeks?
AMI is included in the budget. However, I mean, I thought that at a previous meeting, we approved that we were going to move forward with the AMI project. So if we've already decided we're moving forward, you know, we would just like to go ahead and get started, because the longer that goes by, you know, we have a significant amount of water loss, and the sooner we can stop that. So if we already know that it's a project that we're going to move forward on, we'd just like to do that. It is in the budget, you know, it's also a consideration with the ARPA funds, but we always prepare for all scenarios for the AMI. So we have money already in there, so should the financing, you decide to finance it, that money's in there. The ARPA money's sitting there should you decide to go that way. But, you know, at a previous meeting, we decided we were going to do AMI, so we just wanted to get started, and this is what we need to get started.
So in the current iteration of the budget, does it reflect that we're going to borrow the full amount?
It doesn't have the total, like, we don't have the total amount of money in the budget. We have a percentage of the cost. I'll let you talk.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just clarify, we have it modeled that we are going to borrow the money and pay it back over 10 years, I believe. It might be 15, but I think it's over 10 is what we ended up with. 10? Okay. So we have our annual payments for the debt service are built into the budget. So in 2023, we'll have a debt service annual payment. And then in 2024, we'll have another one.
But if in the budgeting process, the commission decided to use some of the funds from, let's say, ARPA, or we find there's a windfall in general fund, and we decided to apply that right away, then we would be borrowing less for that 10-year period, and we'd be reducing that amount you're budgeting. So we would still have that flexibility to draw that down all the way to zero, assuming one of us wins the Mega Millions on Friday.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So when you win, I expect $2 million for AMI.
I'll make that commitment. I bought one ticket.
But yes, this does not change anything you've already approved. It is really a formality and a technicality to make sure that we are managing our money in an open, transparent way, and that's unfortunately just one of the things we have to do. That's why it's in a resolution, so it shows that everybody voted on it, everybody's aware of it.
Any other questions? All right, commissioners.
I make a motion, we go ahead and approve 2022-I, allowing the reimbursement of costs prior to fully funding.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience? Any questions? Hearing none?
Vice Mayor James,
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Whites,
No.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay. Next item, to discuss and consider the act of resolution 2022-J.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, Florida, relating to the levy of general municipal purpose ad valorem taxes for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, beginning October 1, 2022, ending September 30th, 2023, establishing a proposed millage rate, computing the rollback rate, setting a public hearing, providing for notice to the Letcher County Property Appraiser, and providing an immediate effective date. The proposed millage rate is 6.25 that is found in the resolution. The millage rate is greater than the rollback rate. The rollback rate is 5.5044, and that is a 13.5% increase over the rollback rate. The public hearing that is going to be held to consider the proposed millage rate and tentative budget for the general municipal purposes will be held on Thursday, September 8th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in our City Hall Commission chambers. And the proposed motion would be to pass resolution number 2022-J as read by title only, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have an overview presentation for you regarding the 2023 budget. We will discuss the budget in more detail over the next two meetings. The intent is to have general fund discussion in detail by department at the next meeting, and then the following meeting will be other funds. So that'll be your enterprise funds, your utilities, building fund, CRA, wild spaces, public places. So tonight I want to go through a few things. We want to look at the fiscal year 22 highlights. We also want to look at the projected results for 2022. Obviously, we still have a couple months left on the calendar, but we do have a good feel on where we're going with the 22 budget. We'll have an overview of the fiscal year 23 budget, and then we'll review the tentative millage rate and rolled back rate, as the city attorney just mentioned. That is something that we are on a deadline for, so that's why we're bringing that forward tonight, but I felt it was important to give you some budget information first before we just ask you to start approving tentative rates. And when we get to that portion at the end of the presentation, this is just setting a max rate. So the budget that's been developed is based on no rate increase to the millage. We are suggesting, it's currently 5.99 mils, we're suggesting going to 6.25 so that you as a group have flexibility should you decide to add something that we don't currently have in the budget, or if you have some changes for us. If we leave it at 5.99, it doesn't leave you any flexibility in the next few budget meetings. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention so you'd understand what the process was for this evening. So I'm going to go through a couple of the departments and some highlights. If you have any questions or want more detail, we do have department heads here if they need to answer questions that I can't answer for you. So we'll start off with the police department. A couple of the projects that they completed during 22 were the solar message sign that you see when you're coming into Alachua, and also the off-road utility terrain vehicle. As you can see, they've used the sign purchased the sign through a governmental grant. So again, that's a great part of it. And it enforced the safety messages for the public and provided some nonprofit organizations with advertisement and done community outreach. The off-road utility terrain vehicle has been used to continue, of course, policing for the police department, and can be used for rescue and search missions, as well as special events and community outreach as well. Parks and Rec has done several projects that you've seen throughout the city. They purchased new playground equipment for the Walter Howard Park. You can see some images there. They've also purchased the property for the Memorial Park expansion, which is the first picture on the left. And then they've also resurfaced the basketball courts and put new basketball court, and resurfaced the tennis court and provided a new net. And of course, Canoe Outpost was purchased during 2022. And then in the fire department, recently, a new brush truck was purchased from Utah and brought back to Gainesville. And using ARPA funds, the cardiac monitors were replaced in the fire department as well, which obviously was much needed. In the public works area, we don't have a lot of pretty pictures because most of it's underground where you don't see it. The water main replacement project, this was a community development block grant project, so it was grant funded for $625,000, and then the city provided the other $75,000. Well, number 3, as you know, is underway, and the AMI project we just talked about should be starting, the planning portion is starting right now. On the sewer side, we do have a $7 million grant from the Swanee River Water Management District to complete some expansion on the sewer plant. Again, if you have any specific questions, please let me know. So in 2022, we had budgeted $5.6 million for revenues and expenses. We are projecting that we will come in a little bit above that at $5.8 million. And some of the things that are driving those changes, some of the revenues were under budgeted, which is always a good thing. It's better than the opposite. And we were missing a line of some revenue sharing from the state in the tune of $200,000. So that made me very happy. We also have seen some increases to the utility tax and franchise fees as utility costs have gone up, and of course we've had a very hot season. Property insurance, however, property insurance and fuel are coming in higher than anticipated. Our budget that we used for the property and liability insurance for our departments was a couple years stale, and we've gotten some new numbers, so we're kind of playing catch up on the price increases with that. So we've seen an increase hit in 22, and we anticipate that again in 23. So as we get to some of the line items, you'll see an increase in that area. We also had budgeted some of the transportation fees, the local option gas tax, to be used to supplement public safety for $355,000. Right now, it looks like we'll probably only need to use about $290,000 in 2022, and then in 23, only about $20,000, give or take. We'll continue to work on the budget as we work with you and any suggestions you have. So these numbers are we know they're going to change. It's just a matter of how and how much. So this is kind of an overview of the assumptions that we have built into this, and we would love to have feedback if you have any. If you're fine with these, that's great. We'll keep moving forward. But if these assumptions are things that you would rather see, different scenarios, or if you have other assumptions that you would like to build in, just let me know and we can work through that. The general fund property tax revenue for 2023 is projected to be about $200,000 above the budget for 2022. The property values came in higher as we expected. The water and sewer rates by resolution are increased by CPI each year. The June CPI was 9.1%, so there will be an increase to the water and sewer rates. So obviously that will increase the revenues. And additionally, we do have the AMI system going in during fiscal year 23. It may or may not be in for the whole year, but I did build in a small amount to see some revenue recovery there. In the fire department, the contract with the Alachua County will also increase by CPI per contract, and we're not anticipating any changes to the fire assessment. That's already come before you a few weeks ago. And we do not build in any increases for anticipated new revenues. So things like the solar farm, new developments, Cox coming into town, we don't anticipate that revenue. There's a couple reasons. It may not happen, and we don't want to build our budget on something that's not certain. And also, the property taxes don't hit. They probably won't hit until at least 2024 for most of those projects. The projects have to be online, or property has to be in place and occupied on January 1st. for it to be captured in that property tax year in November. So we're not anticipating seeing any of those hit the tax rolls for January. If they do, that's great. We'll be in a better position. On the expense side, we are looking at employee increases. There was a pay study, and we have gone through with HR, with Jenny and her and Angela, and they have placed everybody, they provided the information to place everybody in the correct slot. So based on their years of service in their current position, we now know where they should be getting paid. So that was the first step, put everybody in the right spot. Then after that was done, we applied a 3% raise across the board for everyone, including the commission. And that's what's built in. So again, if that's an assumption you're comfortable with, great, we'll continue to move forward that. If that's not what you'd like to see, let me know and we can run something different. We did look at the commissioner salaries compared to other cities, and we do have a projection. It would be about another $13,000 to get the commissioners in line with what we see in Alachua and Newberry. So again, we can build that in. We're just working on that today, so we can build it into the next iteration so you can kind of see where that hits. And if that is important to you, and if that $12,000 is acceptable, it's give or take, it's a little bit more than that. It's like $12,134 or something. As I mentioned earlier, property and liability insurance and fuel are obviously, impacting us, so we had to build a little bit more in for those. Health insurance premiums for the city went up 8%. Apparently our broker did a good job. It started out at 27 and we got to 8, so I'll take that. And then of course in your utilities, you're seeing an increase in costs of chemicals, things like chlorine and water and wastewater, and then your contracts for services that are being done. Labor's more expensive, materials are more expensive. So just to show you how the proposed employee raises would impact by fund, the general fund would be impacted by about $320,000, which is about 10% of what the total personnel budget is, including benefits. And these include the impacts of FICA, retirement, workers' comp, things like that. So this is a fully loaded number. The fire department, it's about $113,000, and these numbers are rounded up a little bit because too many details makes it a little bit much to look at. The water fund, about $22,000, which is only about 3% or so, and sewers, $9,600. Solid waste is only about $1,000. That's a very small department because most of it's contracted out. The building fund, about $4,000, and wild spaces, $5,700, and CRA, $5,400. So this gives you kind of a feel, and that really is due to the distribution of employees that are charged in each of those areas. And this is separate and apart from the ARPA premium pay. The ARPA pay did not go into base rates for raise purposes or retirement purposes. So when we apply a 3%, that ARPA money is not part of that discussion, just to clarify on that. And then personnel, again, just like to touch on this during budget so you're familiar with what we're doing in staffing. So each of the funds is listed with the number of employees currently budgeted as a full-time employee, an FTE position within each of those areas. Most of them are occupied. There are some vacancies, but this is the total count of approved positions. We are looking to add one administrative person to help out in wild spaces, public places, and parks and rec. It would be 50-50 funded. Then an additional service worker, one in roads and streets, and a service worker, one in sewer. On the roads and streets portion, that's general fund. And as I was balancing everything out in the budget, we were getting pretty close. So we're recommending, working with Thomas, to wait until a little bit into the year, maybe January, February, to make that higher. So the entire salary year doesn't hit. It will just give us enough wiggle room that we can make that work. And then like I said, the service worker and sewer. And it may look odd that you have, positions, 0.975 and things like that. We have some part-time employees like school crossing guards. They're only 1/5 of a position, so that's a 0.20 FTE. Even Kevin, for example, his salary is divided between the city manager's office and the fire department as a PIO, as a public information officer. So you have like a 1/6 or an 1/8 of his position in one of the places. So that's why the decimal places look a little odd, but like I said, we do have, and we have several part-time employees as well. So our proposed budget, we talked about what we were looking at in '22 for projection at 5.8 million, and we are proposing a budget of just over $6 million. I hate to go across that line in 1 year, but this just happens to be when it happens. This is a highlight of the revenues by category. There are a few items that I've moved to a different category, so we might see a couple areas where there's a little bit of bumpiness, and that's just because I've recategorized them to what I'm used to. It doesn't, neither of them are right or wrong, it's just a preference. When you look at the taxes, you can see there's an increase of about $200,000 with property tax. You also will have an increase in utility tax, as an increase in the utility rates from Clay Electric and Duke and the gas companies. You'll also get an impact on the utility tax increasing. Licenses and permits, this is not like the building department permits. This is more zoning fees, and a lot of planning items are in this category. And this is one of the areas that I moved items around. So it looks like we doubled between 22 projection and 2023's budget, but it's more a matter of recategorizing. So like miscellaneous revenue, I moved some things around, and fines and forfeitures. The state revenue sharing, this is the area I mentioned earlier where we had a line item that wasn't included. So I was pleasantly surprised to have a bump in that area. And so the projection is about $722,000, and we're projecting $730 going into '23. Grants, and grants are really difficult to budget. A lot of the time our grants are requested after the budget has been set. So, the police department may file, submit a request for a $10,000 grant, but we wouldn't know that till like January. So this one's a little difficult to budget for, and I try to be a little more conservative. It just depends on what we already know is in place and what we're anticipating. Charges for services, this is things like the school resource officers that we get reimbursed for, parks and rec fees, any services that we provide and charge for that are part of the general fund. Fines and forfeitures, we have, and obviously you've approved the hiring of a magistrate, so hopefully that will help us with this category where we will start closing out some of those and seeing some results. And then miscellaneous revenue, that runs the whole gamut. Some of it's copying fees when somebody makes a public record request. Sometimes it's rent from the post office. So there's a lot of things that are mixed in there that just don't fit in the larger categories. None of those individual categories had a big difference from my recollection. And then transfers in, that is the other funds making contributions to the general fund to help pay for services provided by administrative staff and financing and all those things that we do, utility billing, for example, to get the revenue for the utilities. We are actually looking like we're in a better position. You can see that that number's decreasing. Budgeted, like I said, there was some local option gas tax in there, and so we're dropping that down. And we're actually proposing a little bit less in transfers in '23 than we were in '22. And then on the expense side, personnel costs, obviously in a city municipality, we're going to have our personnel as our highest expense. This number includes all of the employee raises that I mentioned, putting people in the correct slot per the pay plan and the 3%, and the associated fringe benefits that go with that. Operating expenses, that is anything that is operating maintenance. It's not it's kind of everything but capital and personnel. So office supplies or contracts or professional services where you have a consultant come in. It might be postage or your cell phones. It's that whole group of items. And when we go through the departments at the next meeting, we'll look at those in more detail. Debt payments, so we talked about AMI, for example. AMI wouldn't be included in this because it's in one of the other funds, but that would fall in this line. So when you have a borrowing and you're making payments back, or like Canoe Outpost, things like that, they fall in the debt service line. And then contingency, there's a contingency in the city manager's budget, and it hasn't been used, so to make our budget balance, we lowered it down to $5,000 for 2023. We've only spent $2,700 so far. And then transfers out, there's $75,000 going to the reserve budget, the emergency fund. There's also money going out for TIF for the CRA, and there's also the money that goes to the fire department to help support the fire department. So that's what makes up those transfers. So this is a high-level summary, and I'll just quickly run through it. So all of the funds have a fund balance function. Doesn't mean there's any money in it, but they have a fund balance function. So the general fund, for example, when you get done at the end of the year, if you've spent less than you made, money will go into the fund balance. So in the column on the right, based on the budget we have right now, again, it's going to change. This is the assumption of how that fund balance may or may not change. In the general fund, we're not projecting any changes or requesting any changes. The fire fund currently has about a $75,000 fund balance. We anticipate them doing better than expected in 2022, and that will give us enough budget that we can use $308,000 of the fund balance in the fire fund, which limits the amount we have to take out of the general fund. So it's all very connected and circular, and so there's a lot of iterations, but it really helps the general fund by being able to draw off the fire fund. And that way you're using the money legally, appropriately, for the right things, but you're still kind of getting to the right place at the end. The water fund, we're not proposing any changes to the fund balance as a result of the budget. And sewer fund, we think we might be a little bit to the plus, around $50,000. Solid waste fund, we have an increase to the rates per contract, and that will cover the cost, of course, of the service of garbage. And we think we may come in with about $70,000 more. The building fund, we're pretty even on the expenses and revenues, maybe use about $20,000. We are seeing that the building fund is growing, and we do need to start spending that down. So we've started having conversations about what the best way is to do that, and contemplating a public works and building fund building with planning. So we'd have a customer center that would be a one-stop shop. Super preliminary. We're still having conversations. We haven't even written anything down. So, but I just wanted to let you know that we do need to spend down some of the building fund, and we're very limited in what we're allowed to use that for. That one's very much watched by the state, and it's very restrictive. Wild Spaces Public Places looks funny because we have no numbers there. We are waiting to hear from the county and confirm with the county what our transfer is going to be, and we're still working on the project list. And I think we'll spend some time with all of you to try to determine the best project list, but that one's still up in the air, but I didn't want to hold anything up because of that. Again, that would be the second meeting in August that we would talk about Wild Spaces. And then CRA, we are proposing using $170,000 out of fund balance to cover expenses in that area. Again, we'll talk about the projects in 2 meetings from now. So overall, the total for all funds is about $12.5 million. So now we're to the part that is the technical reason we're here tonight, that we need to approve a maximum millage rate. This is due back to the property appraiser's office by August 4th, which is next week, of course. So we need to get this ratified tonight. So the tentative not to exceed millage, the maximum millage rate, this gives you a little bit of background on what that means. This is the rate that the city cannot exceed when we approve the budget in September. So as I mentioned, the budget is based on leaving the millage rate alone, but we are proposing approving a little bit of an increase should you want to make any changes and have some flexibility. It's not that much. It's only a quarter of a mil, which is not a lot of money. But again, we wanted to leave some flexibility there. So the tentative must be certified, as I mentioned, by August 4th, and the proposed budget is based on 5.99. The final millage and the fiscal year 23 budget will be certified after adoption by the city in September. So this is just a preliminary number. This is not adopting it as the final millage rate, but it's just a step we need to take in the process. This is everyone's favorite, the rolled back rate. The rolled back rate is basically what you would need to set the millage rate at to collect the same amount of revenue as you did last year. You're going to have a new property tax. So you're going to do millage times property value. You're going to do the millage rate times the property value. That property value is changing. If that goes up, your millage rate would go down to get the same number. I hope that makes sense. So This is the formula that we use. You don't need to know it or memorize it. It just gives you the background should you be interested in it. So you have full transparency. The current rolled back rate in the center of the screen in the blue line is 5.5251. And this is a little bit of a revision than what's in the resolution. We did a very late revision today during the day, and we'll make that correction to the resolution before it's signed. The tentative proposed millage rate is at the very bottom of the slide, 6.25 mils. In between those two blue lines is if we wanted to go crazy and increase the millage rate to 12.28, we would have to have a majority vote of the commission to do that. That's all that's telling us, is what kind of votes do we need to have to be able to go to that rate. So the recommendation tonight is to approve the tentative millage rate, review the upcoming meeting dates that will show on the next slide again for everybody's information, and then provide any feedback you may have. And if you don't, that's okay too. We'll have plenty of opportunity in the next two meetings, so that will give us some feedback for the budget development. Again, we'll have budget workshops on the 4th and the 16th. We did put out initially that we would have the first meeting on the 2nd, and that has changed for anybody that was really excited to come on the 2nd. And the 23rd, we have a placeholder if we should need to have a third meeting. And then the budget hearings where you're actually approving it will be on Thursday, September 8th and Monday, September 19th. That's it.
Yes.
I can't tell you how nice it is to hear a budget, proposed budget, the way you just explained
Oh, thank you.
it. It is really,
Most
really
people fall
nice.
asleep during budget meetings.
It was very well done.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir, if I may, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Diane, let me just say, I have no idea how many hours you and Ashley had put in to put this little packet together, but it was
We did it this afternoon.
wonderfully prepared and wonderfully
Thank you.
presented. I did have a couple of questions with the solar power plant not being tax revenue. I understand that it wouldn't be because it wouldn't be built, but that property was already annexed in. Would that still not be extra tax revenue for the city since it's new property?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if it's already annexed in and already on the tax roll, it just wouldn't change in value until the solar farm was up and running and producing revenue. So it's a gap. I don't know, Bruce, do you know something additional? Okay. So it's just a timing issue of when the solar farm will be up and running. If it is before January 1st, then we would start to see revenue from it in November from property tax. But it's just, I'm not sure when it's going to be done.
So since it's property that was annexed in, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be any tax revenue from it since it's now new to the city limits?
It should already be on the roll, depending on when it was annexed.
Oh.
I don't know when it was annexed. That was before my time.
It was just annexed, so it will likely, it depends on the appraiser comes out and assesses it and adds it. As you know, it doesn't always happen when it's supposed to, but it should definitely get on the roll next year. So I wouldn't necessarily say we would see any this upcoming fiscal year. It'd probably be the following. It's just going to be very minor because it's ag. So since it's ag zoning, it doesn't have the value it will when it's a solar power facility.
Okay.
And that may be included in what the property appraiser's office supplied to us for this year's budget. Those numbers are all given to us, and we don't get the option to change them. I mean, we can build it on the side, but the true property tax line is based on what is provided and certified by the property appraiser's office. But that's a good question.
So then the same case would be for the church that's on 441 that's now going to be Palms Medical Group. That will come onto the rolls as well. Is that correct? But it probably just isn't yet.
Again, I'm not exactly sure when they're going to bring it because it's always kind of close. But being conservative, I would say next year and then the following, just based on, for instance, technically, I think my house should have already been on there. and I wasn't charged the amount of taxes this year I should have been. So I'd kind of leave a year gap.
Okay. And I was doing some quick calculations, and it looks like we're proposing a 15% increase in personnel costs from last year to this next year?
Approximately. It varies by fund based on their personnel costs compared to their other costs, but yeah, in that range,
Okay.
13-15% total, yes.
And in the CRA, we're at a deficit? Yeah, am I looking at that correctly?
The CRA runs off a running balance of funds, so it really just depends on what you're spending at that time. So every year, there's money put into it that may or may not be spent during the year. So it's different from the, you're, planning for just term than that. So by having that horizon, you don't necessarily see a break even every year. It could go either direction, just depending on what's funded in that time period.
We can't spend money that we don't have, is that right?
Well, it's taking money out of the bank. There's savings, there's money in savings. That negative number means we're pulling out of savings.
Yeah, so to clarify, there's a healthy fund balance in there right now, and they do a transfer from the general fund to CRA because the money initially goes into general fund, and so that is pulling out of, like Diane said, out of the fund balance. But typically, we get ambitious with our projects, and we don't really spend all of it during the budget year. We just want to budget for them and just in case.
This is new to me, so I'm going to have a lot of questions. When I see
love budgets,
when
so
I
ask
see a
away.
parenthetical number, I'm thinking we're in
That
trouble.
makes sense,
So,
right?
okay.
When you see that, when it says to or from fund balance is just your savings account for that fund.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Commissioners?
Good job.
Yes.
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the tentative millage rate at the 6.25. I think last year when we did that, it allowed for a lot of flexibility and discussion in the budgeting process, and we were able to drop it down to the 5.99 in the end. And that's much better than in previous years where they've gotten into a spot where they've picked a millage rate and they get into the weeds and go, oh, well, we don't have money because we've already limited what we can tax. So I'm making a motion, we tentatively go with the 6.25 and hope we're able to work it down to the existing 5.99.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience have any questions? Yes, sir. Come to the mic, please. Come to the mic.
Okay, I've never been to one of these before, so how you doing? I'm Mike. So the first issue I say is the 10% increase on the water bill, 9.1. Sounds ridiculous to me. I think we're paying too much already. And then I didn't see anything in there that said they were going to help give back to the community. I know that you guys have surpluses of money, all that stuff, but you guys were just basically speaking on spending and not how could you conserve. Right now is not a really good time to be spending a bunch of money. It's the economy is really going down. I don't know. I know you guys all get a steady check, but there's a lot of people who live on fixed incomes and simple raises like that. Right now, I feel like I'm way overpaying my water bill. Really do. My utilities, it's ridiculous. Just 3 months ago, it almost doubled. I came in here and raised heck, and I know that they probably don't want to hear it, the girls downstairs, but my water bill jumped like $70 in 1 month. So then I hear from other people that they had the same thing happen to them. Now, I just stood down there and complained enough that they actually did something with my bill. How many people in this city nothing happened to? They just paid that bill.
So I can't speak to your water bill without doing the research and knowing your individual case. I can tell you that this is a very bare bones budget and it's focused. We didn't put money in there for all these extra projects we'd like to do, only the basics and trying to preserve our assets. Currently, we're one of the lower paid cities in Alachua County. It's getting very, very difficult to recruit and retain employees. And if we don't do some increases as far as the market analysis, we could get in a very precarious situation. So the statement that we're spending all this money, it is on basic services. It is a very tight budget, and And you're welcome to come to more budget meetings if you'd like to
I
see
don't know
more
anything
specifically
about
what we're doing.
budgeting. I'm just sitting here listening to the water bill going up, when in theory, it should be sitting flat. I don't know what more services you guys are providing or what more you plan on spending on, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who's paying for it. I don't know if you guys live right here in the city and you're paying for that water bill, but it's coming out of my tail. And I think before that they propose doing that, you should probably do a vote in the city, the people that live here, and see how many of them people want to pay another 10% on their water bill. And I'm pretty sure you'll be surprised that that answer is no.
The water bill increase, we have a resolution in place that every year, the increase is based on the CPI, and this is with all utilities. The solid waste company does it, and we pass it along. So that is with all utilities, and that's been standard. We are significantly behind on our rates because years ago there was supposed to be an increase and there wasn't. And currently we are kind of having our hands slapped by other agencies by how low our rates are. So, and it has further implications for us. So, you know, we're going by the resolution we have in place. We could always go relook at it at some future point in time, but right now we have to follow the resolution when we make our budget.
Well, I can tell you this, that my water bill has personally went up $30. It went from an average of $60 to about 5 years ago to right now, it's an average of $88. I live by myself. I come home, I take 1 shower a day, I wash 2 loads of clothes a week, all right? Somebody else who actually uses a bunch of water are paying through the roof. My bill is as low as it can possibly be, and it's up $30. And I hate to tell you this, but going over there to the sink and getting a big old glass of refreshing water, the water ain't that good. We're paying top dollar. We're paying for top services. The water ain't that dang good. I know that you say that that's just the way it is, but it shouldn't be that way. You're raising the rates on us, and you're just saying that's it. There's nothing we can do about it. We're just going to keep going up, whether you like it or not. That's ridiculous. 10% is a huge jump. Huge.
Hi. Thank you, sir.
I got one other thing. I don't know how to bring it up, but I'd like to speak to you guys in a minute.
Well, you had opportunity earlier when we had citizen discussion for anything's not on the agenda.
Okay. So at the end of the evening, could I speak to you guys real quick about an issue that's right there in front of my house that is a serious injury?
See that young man sitting right there? Speak to him after the meeting.
Yes, sir. So I know that you guys just shooed me off the stage, but I would like to see something come about that water bill raising up. I think that it's.
All right. Forgot where we was. Did we get a second in though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Whites,
Yes.
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor James.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 5, discuss and consider the act of accepting of bids for water line extension and interconnections.
Hey, Mayor.
Sir.
We do have Greg Lang here from Mid-Tower with our engineering firm. This is the water line interconnect between River Run and River Glen. This will loop the system together between US Highway 27 and US 441. On June 30th, we opened the bids from the grant project that's funded through Swanee River Water Management and the River Grant Fund. There is a small match with the city that's already budgeted. It's already in the budget for this year. Mid-Tower went in and certified the bids, and the lowest bid was the most appropriate bid in their opinion. They certified it. It's in your packet, and Greg Lane is available for any questions.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could first, congratulations on being awarded this bid. This is these grant funds for this bid. You actually were awarded more funding than you needed. The low bidder came in significantly less than available funds, so that's a great thing. And as Deputy City Manager said, the 4 bids were received, and all 4 bids were from quality and qualified contractors. But one bid, the one we're going to recommend, was significantly lower, and it allowed the project to come in under budget. So we've reviewed these bids and found the below-listed contractor to be the low bidder for the project, and attached is that certified bid tab that you have in your packages. And so contingent upon approval from Swanee River Water Management District and your attorney and receipt of proper bonds and insurance certificates, we recommend that the project be awarded as followed to General Underground LLC. They're out of Chiefland, Florida, in the amount of $219,550. And I'm here to answer any questions. And, excuse me, I'd like to say one more thing, Mr. Mayor. This solves a significant water quality problem that the city has had for many years. The city was flushing these lines, which are at dead ends, at the tune of about 15,000 gallons per day of lost water. That's about 5.5 million gallons a year. So this not only helps with the water quality problem at the end of those dead ends, but also saves a dramatic amount of treated, clean water, and that's why the Swanee River Water Management District was very happy to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Boy, that's a big difference.
Absolutely.
Sure is.
That's a big difference. So we still gonna get the same quality of work for that?
Mr. Mayor, yes, sir, and commissioners, this contractor happens to be a local contractor based in Chiefland. His specialty is this type of work. He's been the low bidder on quite a number of projects over quite a number of years that we've designed, and they've always worked out very, very well. He's a very conscientious, high-quality contractor. I think the difference in those prices, because the low bid of $219,000 compared to that high bid, which let me look here, the highest one was $546,000. So that's a dramatic difference. But we've seen more of these big spreads in recent years from contract bid prices. But I am very confident, and we wouldn't recommend this award if we weren't, and if we didn't know that this contractor was both qualified and ready to do the job. I think the city's very lucky, actually, that he bid on the project and he's local.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No, I mean, I had the same question, and frankly, my company has done business with the 3 higher bidders, and I didn't know this contractor, so I was like, is this too good to be true? But the information that staff provided and everything made me really comfortable that, for once, our location in relationship to the skilled contractors, and this really, by tying together these fingered ends, it will make a huge difference in water flow and quality of those residents, all the way from here downtown out on 27 and 441. So it's really important to do this, and the grant funding's great. So
yes, it is. Any other questions, any comments?
May I ask a question, please? What's the total linear feet for the directional drilling? I'm seeing 1,300 linear feet, a 6-inch, 580 linear feet, an 8-inch. How, they're going under the road, right?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
They're actually boring this whole project.
I understand, I'm just,
Yeah, they're going under the road through cul-de-sacs, and then everything is going to be directional bored. That's why this project came in a little bit higher, because we're going through existing residential neighborhoods through easements we've obtained through people's backyards, and that was the best way we felt to get through there.
And Mr. Mayor, the answer to the question, if you look on the certified bid tab, line 3A and 3B, the 8-inch is 580 lineal feet, and the 6-inch is 1,300 lineal feet.
the pricing for the PVC, if we've got that locked in, we need to run with that now.
Agreed.
Okay, any other questions? Entertain a motion.
I move we accept the low bid as recommended by our engineers.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Anyone from the audience? Excuse me, sir. Yeah, come to the mic.
It's kind of concerning that he just says you guys are providing a lower water quality. He's going to bring it up. So you're charging us more for lower quality water, and you've been doing it. So when I bring it up about the water bill coming up, you guys just shut me out, and then you just okayed it.
For clarification, he didn't say that we had lower water quality. He said this would improve water
He's gonna
quality.
improve it. So if he's
So
improving on something.
what this is going to do is it's going to allow to stop staff from having to flush to maintain the quality of water we have at that end of town and allow it to loop and cycle through the system like it's supposed to. All the water is tested in those lines. It meets the requirements set forth by DEP, and it is tested. This just cuts back on the flushing and the amount of non-revenue water that we have in this, that's coming out of the system.
Is there any way we could get him to clarify that and him say that?
Clarify.
My man right here.
Mayor,
Yes.
the city provides very high-quality water to its customers. And the city, furthermore, I'd like to say, because I've been involved in the city's water system for quite a number of years now, is one of the best run, forward-thinking cities that we serve, and we serve approximately 70 cities in Florida. And I'm impressed with your staff, impressed with your operators, and impressed with the elected officials' commitment to make improvements as they can with available funding. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, we have a motion and a second. All,
Wait,
yes, ma'am.
I thought we did, didn't we?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we have a motion second. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All approved, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Item number 6, discuss and consider the act on agreement with the school board of First Christian Academy for School Resource Officer Program.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commission. We're at that time of the year again where it's time to renew our annual school resource program. So I presented the contract for the First Christian Academy, which there is an increase for the amount that we'll be billing them. If you have any questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Any questions?
Does the fee they pay cover the $53,000 cost? I mean, is that the 100% benefits? I mean, and I know there are times where that officer is available for things not related to the school, but is the fee we charge them pay for the officer that we have year-round and their equipment and benefits and everything, or what's the, if not, what's that delta?
I can't tell you the percentile, but it is similar to the schools, the public schools, where they're getting use out of the officer 10 months. We're getting use out of them doing those 10 months for a holiday when the schools are out. So I can't tell you the exact percentile, but it's a pretty close percentile of sharing. That's why we've increased. They would now be paying very close to what the schools or the public schools are paying as well.
Thank you.
Any other question? Yes, ma'am.
Is Justice going over there, or is Justice going to stay here?
Justice stays here, but she does go out and visit First Christian Academy. They actually
That's okay.
inquired about getting their own dog, but we said that was an expense. If they wanted, it would have to be 100%.
There you go.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone from the audience? Do we have a motion? Any motion?
I'll make a motion that this agreement be approved.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Anyone from the audience? I hear none. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, if I may add, we are having our National Night Out, so I would like to invite the commission and the members of the public. That'll be August 2nd, 6 p.m. to 9 at the High Springs Civic Center. We're partnering with Park and Recreation. We're going to have a lot of festivities, a lot of food, and if anyone wants to volunteer, we will have a dunk tank. So if there are any...
That's
always
popular.
Ross volunteer.
I am going to be out of town. So, well, not only for that, but for the budget here.
Yes.
Well, we have a budget workshop that night.
No, that's on the second. National Night Out is the second.
August 2nd.
We moved the budget meeting to the 4th
I
because
beg
of
your
that.
pardon.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, where are we? City Attorney report.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to appear remotely. Our whole team is down here in Bonita Springs for the Florida Municipal Attorneys Association Conference, and appreciate Kevin setting up the remote link and allowing me to do that. So thank you. Hopefully I'll do some good learning.
All right. All right, thank you.
I just piggybacking on that, the Florida League of Cities conference is coming up. I think the 12th, 13th weekend I'll be attending. So if there's any topics that are of particular interest to you, where you want me to check in on some sessions or anything, let me know.
That it?
I have a whole lot more, but you probably don't want to go into everything right now. I'm pretty long-winded.
So I take that also.
And I don't. I'll hold back for now. There have been things going through my head, but you know.
All right.
Just a reminder, volleyball and soccer's fixing to, signups are fixing to start, so that season's going to be underway here shortly. Robotics will start shortly. I believe after August 2nd, we'll start doing signups on that. Third well project has run into a little snag. They hit a big pocket. It's caused some issues. We're having to relocate the well. It's going to have to be moved. So just to make you aware of that, we're working with the well driller right now and the engineers of that project, and it's still going to be on site. We just got to pick it. We just got to move it about 75 feet.
Is that a dry pocket?
Hit a sand pocket, which then opened the void, and then it's not taking grout, so it's going to be best to abandon that.
How deep had you gotten?
About 100 feet. So, so there's some moving parts there. We're working through it right now, so just giving you a heads up on that. So there's a slight delay on that. And back to the elevator, there's some things going on with it, be little things, but at this point, I'm not going to make any recommendations to do that during the budget hearings. We'll just wait until we're done, get budget approved, and then they can come in and do it in October. This way, we're not going to an alternate site and trying to do video and things like that. I just don't want to take away from the citizens during the budget hearing. I just think it's best, unless y'all have a different recommendation for that. Other than that, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner.
I just want to, if anybody goes down 441 during the day into Alachua, and you see Santa Fe Raider Regiment out there marching in the 100-degree heat with their tubas,
Right.
give them a honk, because boy, those kids are working hard. All of the area high school bands are out there, and I can tell you, my 14-year-old is finishing her second week, and if I show up to pick her up without a drumstick in my hand, I'm taking my life in my hands. So those kids are working so hard, and it's amazing to see what they do. And any kid who can march with a tuba in 100 degrees has got my vote.
All righty. I saw our new roof go on. Anybody that's used the stairs, you can already tell that the building smells drier. So I think that was a good thing for this building. On September 14th, the Alachua County Tourist Development Council is hosting its bi-monthly meeting here in High Springs. It'll be in the old school, and a special presentation about the impacts of cave diving, both retail and as a tourist. Impacts on tourism are going to be presented by some of the local businesses. So everybody would be welcome for that. I will be gone for the budget hearing on the 4th, so I'll watch the video when I have internet, which means I'll have to be the next year that I do the dunk tank. I believe you did quite well in that last year, even when it was cold. So, you know, you could reprise the role. For that, Florida League of Cities is encouraging Civic Engagement Week in October, the 17th through the 23rd. It's been a number of years since I think we did anything formally with that, and maybe staff could look at opportunities for citizens to see some things that they don't normally get to see about our city, whether that's our water plant or our sewer plant, or, you know, other opportunities to learn how we even put a budget together or whatever. So, I'm just throwing that out there. And that's it.
I have nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
The only thing I have is, I have a conflict with a couple of the budget workshops that you have. Just to let you know, your dates are fine, but August 16th is the week of early voting, and as usual, they've scheduled me for work that day. And August 23rd is the actual election day, so that'll be another day I'll be out, but just so you'll know.
Ooh, that is something to think about, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I will not be available. I didn't think about that until you said something.
Yeah, see?
August 23rd either.
Well, yeah, it said if needed.
It says if needed.
Okay.
Okay.
That's voting day, so yeah.
That it?
That's it.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Antoine, I'll think about it. So I'll think about it, let you know before the second. I can see my grandkids throwing whatever. I'm gonna get them this time. Also, on this past week, myself and Commissioner Jones and Chief Shepherd, we had the opportunity to welcome our new postmaster to town. So we have an angel watching over our post office. That's his name, Angel Cruz. So if you get a chance to go by and speak to him and say hello, so he's saying like a real nice guy.
Yes.
Real nice guy. If there's nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion